The Tale of Sausages. Once upon a time, there was a dog who lived next door to a butcher's. This butcher made pork and beef sausages every Friday, and Bingo the dog was so fond of these that he would somehow or other manage to steal a string of them when the butcher was not looking. His mistress was very cross with him when the butcher came and told her what Bingo did. She had to pay for the sausages, and she scolded Bingo hard. "You're a naughty little thief," she said. "I'm ashamed of you, Bingo. You are not to take this butcher's sausages any more." But on the next Friday, when Bingo saw the strings of sausages lying on the slab in the butcher's shop, he quite forgot all his mistress had told him. He crept up when the butcher was not looking, snapped at the string of sausages, and quietly ran off with them to his favourite hiding place just under the lilac bush. It so happened that his mistress was walking down the garden just afterwards, and she heard the sound of munching under the lilac bush. She looked there, and dear me, when she saw Bingo gobbling another string of sausages, how upset she was. "Oh, I should have to pay the butcher again," she cried. "You naughty dog, come here." But Bingo wouldn't come. He slipped away the other side of the bush and ran off, licking his lips. All those sausages were good. He didn't see his mistress put on her hat and coat. He didn't see her go out of the gate and turn towards the funny little shop that stood all alone at the end of the village. If he had seen her, he might have felt worried, for she was going to buy something that would stop him stealing sausages forever. Dame Snooty kept the funny little shop. There were big bottles full of interesting powders and great jars of strange-smelling liquids. Dame Snooty was very wise, and she used to go out into the countryside early each morning, collecting rare plants and herbs, which she boiled and made into curious medicines and powders. She had a powder or medicine for almost everything under the sun, from a little bruise to sunstroke. Bingo's mistress told her about her naughty little dog, and Dame Snooty shook her silvery head in horror when she heard about all the sausages he stole. "I can give you a yellow powder for him," she said. "I don't quite know how it will work, but it will certainly stop him from stealing sausages any more." "Oh, thank you," said Bingo's mistress. "I'll take it now." Dame Snooty emptied some bright yellow powder into a little blue box and gave it to Bingo's mistress, who paid her a silver sixpence for it. That night, Bingo's mistress put the yellow powder into Bingo's drinking water, and when the little dog came home, he was so thirsty he drank every single drop. He thought it tasted a bit funny, but he was so thirsty it didn't bother him at all. Nothing happened that night, nor the next day. Nothing happened the day after that either. Bingo felt just the same as usual, but Bingo's mistress was quite sure that when Friday came, Bingo would suddenly feel he wasn't going to steal sausages anymore. She thought he would be a good dog and never steal again because of the yellow powder she'd given him. Friday came, and dear me, when Bingo smelt that lovely sausage smell, he just couldn't think of saying no to it. "I must get me some of those sausages," he whooped to himself. "I don't care what happens, I must have some." So he played his usual trick of waiting until the butcher's back was turned and then running off with a long string of brown sausages. He sat down in a quiet corner to eat them, and when he gobbled up every single one of them, he lay down to sleep. When he awoke, he sat up and yawned, and then off he ran to go home. But something funny seemed to be behind him. He looked round, and whatever do you think had happened? Why, his tail had changed into a long string of brown sausages. Oh yes, he had no longer got his little stump of a wagging tail. It had gone, and instead he had this long string of sausages growing onto him. Bingo was astonished. At first he thought someone had tied them onto him, so he bit them, meaning to eat them. But he hurt himself when he bit, for the sausages were his tail now. It was just as if he'd bitten his own tail. He yelped with pain and sat down to look at the sausages. What a very peculiar thing. They certainly were growing on him. However could it have happened? Bingo didn't know what to do. He thought he'd better go home to his mistress and see what she said. So off he trotted. But he'd forgotten that he might meet other dogs and cats too. As soon as they smelt his sausage tail, they ran after him in delight. "Sausages! Sausages!" The news went round, and soon 22 dogs and 16 cats were all around Bingo, trying their hardest to eat his sausage tail. It hurt him dreadfully every time they bit him. They wouldn't leave him alone. They kept snapping and biting at his strange tail till he yelped with fright, and at last he got home and ran whining to his mistress. But when she saw his tail, she laughed. Yes, she laughed and laughed, for she saw what that yellow powder had done, and she thought it was a very good punishment for Bingo. "Aha! You see, Bingo," she said, "you are so fond of sausages that your tail has grown into a string of them. Now what will you do? You'd better stop eating sausages altogether, or you might find that you had turned into a great big sausage yourself. Let your tail be a warning to you." Bingo was upset and unhappy. He crept into his kennel with his strange tail and lay down, trying to hide it. He wouldn't come out at all. He lay there all the week, eating just a few biscuits and drinking water, but nothing else. When Friday came, he smelt the sausages at the butcher's next door. He was hungry, but he didn't stir out of his kennel to go and steal those sausages. No, he didn't want to see or taste sausages in his life again. He'd lived with a tail of sausages all the week, and he hated them. Bingo crept out of his kennel to have a drink of water, keeping a good lookout for any dog or cat that might be near. He was so afraid they would smell his sausage tail and come to eat it. He looked round at it, and to his great delight it was shorter. Instead of being 6 sausages long, it was only 5. One of the sausages had disappeared. "Perhaps if I'm a good, obedient dog and never steal again, my tail will disappear," thought Bingo. So he went to his mistress and told her he had made up his mind never to be naughty again. As he told her that, his tail became shorter still. Another sausage was gone. Well, before another week had passed, Bingo's sausage tail had disappeared, and his own stumpy little tail had grown instead. How pleased he was! How he wagged it to make sure it was all right! He was delighted. And now he never goes near the butcher's shop on Fridays, and the butcher thinks he's a good little dog and often gives him a bone to gnaw on. Sometimes, just sometimes, he forgets his promise to be good, and then his mistress looks at him and shakes her head. "Sausages, Bingo," she says. "Remember the sausages." Then Bingo remembers, and you should see how his ears and tail droop in shame.